Wow. Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. And of course, all of you that are able to take part in this live show Monday through Friday are our co hosts. And today we are yet again going through a televised pop culture character, and we're going to use that character to help fuel our tabletop role playing experience, creating NPCs, enemies, adversaries, allies, and things like that for our player group. Well, hello there. um, Thank you very much for joining us. We are going to talk about Alicent Hightower. Alicent Hightower is a character from the show House of the Dragon, and of course, this character is still around in Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, which is a rare thing in many of the characters in this televised series. And this character we're going to do as a compare and contrast with her best friend. Yeah, mind fuel. That's important as spleen fuel. Yep, hell's yeah. Bodily organs fueling our creative process. Um, having things enter and exit out all the holes in the human body is pretty necessary. Gotta top off on that stuff and get that information injected into one of thousands of holes in the human body. And we need this because this character, Alicent, is, as hinted yesterday in a kind of conversation that happened towards the end of the broadcast. Alicent is a proverbial non-actor. And I don't mean actor as in portraying a character, but as in being proactive. She is reactionary, as well as the fact that she's the epitome of ineffectiveness, and that's a very difficult thing to embody in a character that has very little forward motion. So let's all get on the same page about this character that you see displayed beside me, Alicent Hightower. So much of her life has been controlled by the rules that have taken place in this world, and she represents the epitome of those rules in terms of the the stage of women being service objects in this in this society. And the actress, both the younger actress that portrayed her and the current older actress that portrays her, really embodies that, and she does an excellent job doing that. For example, when Alicent was very young, a teenager, let's say, her father controlled her life, basically telling her she would be only purpose is to marry a noble. That's how you gain power. And so she was set to, as a preteen or teenager, to, shall we say, uh, induce or seduce the current king whose wife died. And eventually, Viserys, the peaceful king, the ineffective king, ends up marrying Alicent. He is, of course, an older gentleman at the time, and marries this very youngish girl. Ugh, icky. Okay, so Alicent's father controlled her life and put her in this position. Then, when she becomes the king's wife, her only real influence in terms of politics and her own creating her own destiny, she's just there to have children. And eventually she does give birth to many children, one of whom is Aegon II, who has the name and is the firstborn of this union to sit upon the throne. So now she is the mother of a possible king. Then after that, not only is her life controlled by her father, and then her far too old for her age husband and king of the nation, but then after that, her children, as they come of age, begin controlling everything around her. And during this period of time, she has very little voice. As displayed in the books and not necessarily in the show, that she's kind of looked at as like the evil witch, and many things are done in and around her and politically in her name, or she is like gravity. She's pulled into these machinations about taking over the nation and ignoring the fact that her best friend, as she was younger, was decreed by her own husband and the king of the nation that her friend Rhaenyra is supposed to take the throne. So instead, her Alicent uh, understands that there have been plots around her to put her son Aegon on the throne instead, and she goes along with it. To compound things even further, she does seem to have a jealousy streak in her. And that jealousy streak is that her best friend Rhaenyra, a noble, a Targaryen, and a dragon rider, got to sow her wild oats when she was younger, got to flaunt the rules. The Targaryens get to flaunt the rules of society, and Alicent was not able to flaunt those rules and has been using the stricter religious tutelage of the Seven Kingdoms as her armor and a protection. And she is a bit of a hypocrite. And I happen to like this about the character, how the character is portrayed in the show, television show, and we're going to use that for the basis of creating this ally, this adversary, and this enemy for our tabletop role playing experience. She has been trying to use religion to assuage her guilt, assuage her desires, and to find some kind of peace or hope in that she is fulfilling a purpose, even though she knows that so many people, most of them, vast majority of them, men, telling her what to do, how she should do it, and crushing her voice when she tries to do something out of the norm. And including the fact that one of her paramours, one of the people after Viserys, who's all sickly and much older than her, dies, that she doesn't get remarried, but she starts having an affair with the Kingsguard. Again, having a feudal society in which genitalia and gender are an important part of government, which is a completely horrible method of government in and of itself. She's not supposed to be having the nasty with a Kingsguard, even though she's not married and she wants to soil her oats. But again, both of those two are parallel in the sense of like feeling guilty about their feelings, about breaking the rules of society, and feeling impure in doing that, basically over and over again. The End King says a storyteller can create this dynamic at the table by rewarding one player and punishing another for the same behavior. They'll love this dynamic. Ooh, you are so right. Yeah, I mean, listen, she and I like the character. I understand that she is technically a bad guy in the show. Her the dichotomy between I'm pure and I'm goodly and I'm doing the right thing, and then she continues to do bad things after that, and we're supposed to accept the fact that, well, I begged for forgiveness, so you should forgive me. And characters around her and we as consumers watching it are going, shaking their heads like, no, you did the bad thing. Just because making it a modern context, just because Sunday came around and you asked for forgiveness doesn't change the fact that you still did the bad thing and continue to do the bad thing. Also, like I said, there's this holding ground she's in where she is a spectator in her own life, and that's a very difficult thing to bring across in a public portrayal of a character, because we expect our even if it's subconscious, as a as a consumer of media, especially fantasy media, we expect our characters to move forward. And when I say move forward, they either make a bunch of mistakes and fall behind, or they make a bunch of decisions and they get ahead, but they keep moving forward. And she is constantly step forward, step back, step forward, step back. And it's frustrating to see that, because even characters we hate, we kind of raise our fists in the air like, please do something. Like, move out of your situation, make a decision or whatever. And she's proverbially like stuck in the mud. And it's entertaining to see, because the frustration keeps building, right? And they're pulling that thread very taut, and it's amazing, including literally in this latest, without giving too much of a spoiler away, literally having the camera slowly zoom in on her face, and having the sound of all the other people speaking around her and ignoring her kind of like warble and fade in the distance, and starts to become indistinct as it dawns on her that she has been relegated to a nobody, despite the fact that she's the queen of the nation. Queen, oh wow, I can't remember all the titles. Queen Dowager, Queen Regent, not Regent. So she had Queen Dowager, I believe is what they call her. Shai says, there are certain types of people our leaders aren't supposed to be having the nasty with either, but that ain't stopping them. Yeah. Yeah. You're so right. Like in the context of the show, in my head, I'm like, girlfriend, you don't need to apologize for jack shit. Like, you go ahead and do your thing, right? Although she is sleeping with the painfully handsome Kingsguard who keeps failing upward. That's Sir Kristen Cole, Mr. Not only did I bang her best friend, who is a noble and a dragon rider, and on the opposite side of the conflict, but I'm also doing the bumping nasties with the current queen. this dude is like, he just stumbles into the greatness. And of course, as actresses, they're both, I'm sorry, one's an actress, one's she, one's they, but both of their portrayals are, I mean, they're absolutely gorgeous women. And he is painfully handsome, and if I do say so myself. And it's like, this dude, I hate people like that. They're so perfect. The End King says, it's worse in fiction to see a coward or someone indecisive than it is to see a hardworking villain. Exactly. I mean, and the thing is, like, even as we watch characters, we can get frustrated, but we don't even mind characters making mistakes. Like even a character who keeps trying to decide to do a thing and they fail, and then they get a setback, and then they fight through that setback and try to navigate around it. It's cool. But her, it's she goes to say something, she doesn't do it. She beseeches someone to, she finally stands up for herself. That person ignores what she said. She has the opportunity to grab power for herself, some kind of independence, and make, you know what I mean? And when I say power, I don't mean like controlling a nation, just simply not having to do a thing that someone else told her to do. She gets ready to grab that thing, and then she lets it go. And it's over and over for this character. So let's turn Alicent into an ally here. And what I see, and I like exactly what you're saying, and King, you have such an ability to, you guys have such an ability to take very few characters and express them in a great manner. So I really appreciate it. So as an ally for this character, Alicent, just as I'm describing to you how frustrating it is to see Alicent floating like a bug that dropped into your drink and just floating there, and you can't grab the bug, and the bug won't go to the edge of the glass to get out of your drink, and you're just, both you and the bug are just floundering, and you're like, fuck, get out of the glass. Like, I don't even want to kill you, bug, just leave. And the bug is just like, I don't know where to go and what I'm doing. That very nature, let me hit N King's your other comment here. That very nature could galvanize the players to make her an ally. If the players, especially if they meet this NPC multiple times and she's helpful to the player characters, But when the player characters try to help her, she can never get out of these sticky situations, literally in a web of deceit and machinations around her. Sometimes the player characters themselves might get frustrated, like, fuck, why isn't she getting out of it? Please stop surrounding yourself with these horrible people. Do this other thing. And so I could see her being an ally that way. Another way that she can be an ally is that the the reward punishment system in this world may be one in which the players, like, this character performs the same exact function that the player characters do. She gets punished for it, the player characters get rewarded for it. Now, I love what you're saying about punishing one PC and rewarding another one, which is this world of House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones. That's kind of how it works. Uh, we see this very much in the dynamic with all of the knighted honorable characters, that it's very difficult to both be a knight of justice and law and a knight of goodness and honor. How do you become someone who's honest and trustworthy and duty bound? Like, at some point, your duty is going to come in duty. Your code of honor is going to come in contact with your ethics. Your ethics and morality are going to rub up against each other and fray, and literally have a battle. And what do you do in that situation? And Alicent, as a noble, born in nobility, married into nobility, giving birth to children that are nobles, and being told what to do because of her noble lineage, does make her a compelling ally, especially if she is able to, in small ways, sacrifice some of her power in uh, to help the player characters. And that also makes her a compelling character as well. If she's only able to draw upon one, two, three elements of power, and then kind of martyrs herself, puts herself back a peg to help the player characters. Some player characters may feel a certain way, like, are you sure we can use this key to go through this secret passage in the kingdom or something like that under the castle? And she's like, yes. Unfortunately, once you do so, it will alert the guards and they'll close it down and I won't be able to use it to escape, but I'm going to let you use it now. And that may be like, she may have a key, a message, an ally, or something like that. And then when she doesn't have that capability anymore, if the players ignore her, now we come into, let's transition this character. Oh, I'm sorry. One other ally capability she may have is that she is also a religious character in this world, where there are the seven. I know I'm going to butcher this. In let's see, Game of Thrones, the seven um, gods. There we go. I don't know all the names of them. There we go. So in Game of Thrones, sorry about that. In Game of Thrones and of House of the Dragon, there's a long-lived religion in Westeros, and that religion are the seven aspects of a godling. And in interviews, Gurm has mentioned that it is a tangential parallel of Catholicism, that the seven aspects are known as the mother, the father, the warrior, the smith, the maiden, the crone, and the stranger, or stranger known as death. And she is a proponent of that type of that religion. And so her character may be not just a noble and not just a contact, but she may be the inroads to I guess they do. Yeah. Like, wait a minute. Game of Thrones, they worship the seven, the boys? Yeah. Homelander and ooh. Uh, going to definitely need a pack of absorbent towelettes, let's just say, after after many of these powerful what is it, compound V enhanced individuals uh, expel some bodily fluids out of one or multiple holes in the body. Some of them created by accident, others created on purpose. Yeah. Says the seven aspects. Is that real world Catholicism you're talking about? No, 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 no. Yeah, of course that's where the Homelannisters come from. Yeah, Homelannisters. It, wow, that is a bit of a parallel. I could absolutely see the Lannisters and Homelander getting along. They're pretty. We're perfect people, and all of you are lesser than us. And they're like, yeah, that's what we think. No, it's not real Catholicism. It's fictional. It's Game of Thrones. It's fantasy. But she is. Drew's like, yay, the boys. Yeah, we'll talk about that next week. Oh, absolutely. Not sure whether we should put Homelander on Monday or like Friday. Not sure. But again, Alicent transitioning over into adversary may be that her dedication to religion may come in conflict with the player characters. Maybe initially she is the person that the players can go to for physical healing and religious uh, blessings or anything like that in a classic fantasy D20 uh, type of system. But her dedication to her religion may then come in conflict with what the players have to do or have done during their adventures. So now, as we transfer her over into an adversary, she may use her influence to challenge the player characters, and they may understand that no, she isn't the greatest power in the nation, even though technically she's the queen, so her word is kind of law. She doesn't seem to exercise it very well or often or in the proper manner, but I could see her using some of that influence against the player characters, and they understand, like, okay, she really doesn't have the power to have us assassinated or murder killed or arrested in the streets, but she could very much dump obstacles in our way, and so she could become a minor nuisance or simply a person who affects the player character's reputation, as well as having a number of allies in the nobility, having allies in the religious faction, as well as she has her own entourage of guardians from the King's Guard and things like that. So she may pull from different, as the player characters circumvent some of her obstacles, she may pull on her contacts to get other obstacles in the player's way. Yeah, yeah, that King Jamie boy, he's kind of like Homelander, isn't he? Yeah, yeah, yeah. He very much is. Handsome and knows, or at least believes, he's one of the best warriors and knights in the realm. It's got the golden locks that he just slightly brushes off of his shoulder and behind his ear and things like that. Yeah, I would say that. I would say that the King Slayer. Yeah, Kingmaker, and they all these knights have these like monikers, like the Kingmaker, Kingslayer, things like that. It's kind of cool. They're actually kind of cool. Now, Alicent also as an adversary, she is struggling to find her place, her voice, her power, and that may be in opposition to one or more of the player characters who also should be in that position. So she may be scrambling for the same influence that the player characters themselves are striving for, especially if you're playing one or more of the player characters are nobility, or they want influence in the nation, or they're movers and shakers. And so there may be some jealousies involved, some envy that she doesn't have as much freedom as the player characters. And so she may be an adversary that way. Like, she doesn't hate them, but they're all trying to reach for the brass ring at the same time, get to that, king of the mountain or whatever the case may be. You gotta save it. You can't waste all these today. You gotta bring them back to next week. Yeah. Oh my god. Just the just the image of like breast milk on his face. Oh man. Not safe for work. Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about it. Not safe for work stuff. He's a great character. He's such a the actor is he definitely needs a television. Was it Emmy? He definitely needs it. Oh, you're all right. Joffrey Baratheon? Joffrey's up there too. Yeah, because Homelander is technically an adult. I mean, a child in an adult's body. So, absolutely. Off of that subject. Back on the Alicent. Um, Alicent, I think, can also be used as an NPC adversary um, because there are many people who want her, who they the they obtain influence because of where the position she's in. So, for example, king's guards and no smaller houses and nobles and um, people who are like magisters and maesters and couriers and uh, all the other people that run the government do it in her name. If she's removed from power, then they are removed from power, both vocally or logistically, or maybe even physically, being arrested or killed or something. So, by virtue of the fact that maybe the player characters are reducing her power, as an adversary, players may get a secondary byproduct of other people being upset. Like her father, Otto Hightower, would not want the player characters to crush her voice because Otto would say, well, wait a minute, you know, you player characters are stifling my power because through my daughter, I have some influence and things like that. So her relationship, you know, her intimate relationship with Kristen Cole, Sir Kristen Cole, may bring Sir Kristen Cole into the conflict as well against the player characters because when she's upset, when she starts describing the tiefling and drow elf and mechanical monstrosity that all player characters seem to like to play, and talking about how it's confounding her ability to do something, so Kristen Cole might step in and go, whoa, wait a minute, uh, she's upset, so now I'm upset. Now, turning Alicent into a bad guy, and here's where I love the idea of using hypocrisy as a personality trait and would make this character so despicable because we could get her to be the evil godmother that is the evil witch that is kind of described in the history books of who Alicent is, and she may be doing very despicable things only to on the seventh day of worshiping the, what are they called, the seven aspects of faith, that she may be going back and going, oh, I didn't mean to do it. Please forgive me for the sins that I have done. And then the other 6 days out of the gaming session, she's calling holy hell down on top of the player characters and everything that they want or need, and stopping them in their tracks, and then going, I didn't mean, I am so sorry I had to murder kill all those people in the village, but I had to somehow get the player characters who were trying to usurp the throne. And it's not because I'm prideful, it's because, well, I'm the dowager mother, and I should be in this position of power. Forgive me for being prideful. I mean, and if that wouldn't upset the player characters to the nth degree, I don't know what would be that way. Um, yeah, I can imagine players being pissed off, especially, we have our classic big bad evil guy who's like rubbing their hands, laughing at their own jokes, twirling their own mustache, like, ooh, I'm evil. And she really isn't that way. She doesn't want to be that way. She doesn't, I mean, look, for example, her children, Aegon and Aemon, Aemond, um, Aemon and Aegon are horrible individuals. These young people, I mean, she clearly didn't raise them uh, to be functioning um, social adults with a high level of ethics and morality. Not at all. because she wasn't raised that way. Her father raised her to be a pawn in his schemes, and so she basically did the exact same thing with her children. They weren't raised by her; they were raised by nursemaids. She's a noble, and even in the show, when her children are suffering psychologically, they need their mother to essentially hug them and listen to them. She can barely like touch them on the shoulder. She walks out and ignores them, and as a villain, her cowardice and her ineffectiveness has the exact same end results as someone who's evil. Her inability to raise her children turned them into her teenage and young adult children into horrors for the nation. Her inability to rein in the other council members around her are like um, they are spendthrifts. They don't know how um, to honorably and using just consistently even you know uh, have government for the population. The people that live in Westeros don't really know what the hell's going on, and I like that about the character, about using that as an aspect of a villainous character. Also, there may be other villainous powers, arcane or otherwise, that are only able to take part because of her tacit agreement, or rather, her she's not saying no, so effectively she's saying yes. And those great powers may run rampant across the countryside, and of course, into and towards the player characters, simply because she's afraid to say no. And that might be kind of cool. The Yankee says this character, as you describe her, might get smooshed. The party wizard might big B smoosh her. Yeah, yeah. She sounds like talk to the hand, the 20-foot hand that's gonna smush you there. Although my mind just went to something really dirty. Whew, better not do that. So yeah, Alicent, like for I'm just making this as an example. I've been pulling upon like the elemental powers as a power structure, like arcane power, and it could be that if she put her foot down and basically said no, maybe the elemental powers don't have influence over the nation. But the fact she won't say no, or she squeaks it out, don't do that. Elemental powers like, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Oh, did you say no? I couldn't hear you past all the wind I'm creating as an air elemental, or whatever the case might be. They could be sweeping past her, and she doesn't know that or doesn't realize, or hasn't embodied her power. And that would be a very interesting thing, MacGuffin, for the player characters to acquire. And that is that Bigby smooshing hand. Yeah. I wonder if there's any visuals of Bigby's hands. I'm gonna see if anybody's made some fun artwork about it. Uh oh, let's see. There's some not the best. It's not the best, but yeah, there's some artwork out there. So some of the Bigby. Oh, there's one. Oh, there's a bloody fist. There you go. There you go. There's one. There's some other art, dark hands, spiritual hands coming out. Mm-mm-mm. There's one. Yeah. Do not presume you can escape. Bigby's hands. Now, the one possible Mordenkainen's crushing thumb and forefinger. Yeah, crush, crush, crush. Hey, wait. Yeah, crush, 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 crush. Right. Oh man, we go to the realm of crush, crush. As long as you stick your forefinger, your thumb out, an enemy far away is just this small. I remember as kids doing that, and like, yeah, you're only like 2 inches tall. Crush, crush. Sorry, squirrel. So, one MacGuffin may be that the players can't just murder kill Alicent to solve a situation. they may need her to step up to the plate to get control of great powers that have been released upon the world that are growing in power, exiting a portal, um, literally growing in power or multiplying or something like that. Maybe the elemental powers that are devastating the nation are under her control tacitly. And if they convince her to give the command words to get them to settle down, she's like, oh, okay, I can do this. But maybe she's a bit of a coward or indecisive, or people are speaking in her ear because as long as she directs those great powers at other enemies, they're everyone's willing to stand behind her for safety as she controls those powers other places. And the PCs may need to tell her, like, listen, we just need you to tell them to stop, and due to duty or her position, or as a lady, as a dainty lady, I'm not supposed to be involved in this thing. And the PCs may say something like you need to get a handhold. Making fun of me with the crush. Yeah, thanks there, man. Absolutely, as a MacGuffin, that may be possible. Now, Alicent really could be an evil witch, very easily. Very this beautiful woman who has children, and technically she's a grandmother. So, if you're into the dirty with the granny, she's painfully gorgeous as a grandmother. So yeah, there. Oh, you found one. The crush emoji. I can't get it any bigger, but that's hilarious. Yeah. Oh, can I? Oh, it won't let me do it. Oh, I was going to try to move it into one of the bigger spots. It won't let me do it. The pinch emoji. Yeah. There. Sorry. This way. There it is. Pinch. I'm pinching your name. Pinch your name. Pinch. So anyway, the I think if you want to make her more of a traditional evil witch or something, she could be a hypocrite and a liar, and she's trying to get back into the good graces of the goodly powers, but she isn't there. And maybe her constantly compromising who and what she is. A classic hag, for example, she may be trying to get to atone. Every time she does something evil, she turns more hag-like. Then she tries to crawl back to the goodly powers, and maybe one or more of them are like, she really does mean it, and they're like, no, she's an evil hag. That's why she literally has a physical transformative nature about her. But it could also be, hags do have illusions and shape changing and things, and that her true self might be very ugly, bent shouldered, liver spots and pus bumps all over her kind of hag. But to the public, she's this, the dowager queen that is very beautiful and doesn't age and whatnot. And her literal children, ogres and other monstrosities that she's given birth to, again, might be ruling the nation, running rampant and such, and she really doesn't have any power over them. They're yes, she's their mother, but it's like hag's milk. It's all green and spoiled with scum on the top, kind of thing. And she may even require the player characters to kind of rein in the children she's given birth to. Now, also, the big bad evil that has an entourage of monstrosities and such, she may literally be their mother, healing them, giving them great power, making the ogres and trolls, and I'm trying to think of some other things, two-headed ettins, and I don't know what other monstrous creatures, lycanthropes and shape changers and things that she's given birth to. I'm just using this as an example. Maybe they have greater power than we think they do, simply by decree of her voice. How she speaks may be a curse. We've heard of old hags cursing noble families when they get punished or something, and by word of her mouth, she grants them great power. And that may be a thing. Yeah, Drew says the mother of monsters is I'll pronounce this, Ik, Echidna from Greek mythology. Is it Echidna? I think it's. I don't think it's Echidna. I think it's Echidna from Greek mythology. I didn't know the name of the individual, but I do know there is a mother of monsters, and she really fit into that category very much so, as this Alicent style character who, again, story wise, may have turned this way as a necessity to have some kind of influence and power over her position and nation and things like that. So the players may confront like her father, who used and abused her power so that he could gain great power. The PCs may come in conflict with her children, who are simply sociopaths and whatnot, and strike them down before getting to Alicent. And Alicent is like, I didn't have a voice. I had to do this. I had to join the coven. I had to make promises to fiendish powers in order to gain a voice and whatnot. And there might be a slight opportunity to redeem Alicent as an enemy and move her back up the ladder of adversary and then into ally as well. I would also say that because of her conflict, she's part of the Greens, the Council of Greens, the faction of Greens, and she's in conflict with the Blacks. And it could be that her conflict with Rhaenyra could also solve an issue, meaning like the players may be able to bring peace to the nation if only the two could get together and hash out their differences about who or what the conflict is. And it could be a simple misunderstanding, or two or more people who are family. Basically, they're more than just friends. They are I'm trying to think of the proper terminology. They are connected in blood and spirit, and that may be an alternate method to just literally stop the madness that's happening. Um, the idea floated in my head and disappeared like a butterfly landing on a shoulder and disappearing. Let's see if I can recall it back. So in the story, I can't remember it now, and it fluttered around. Oh, okay. So um, when the two individuals, Alicent and Rhaenyra, were growing up, they did really have the opportunity to have a voice for themselves. Rhaenyra was very rebellious and really tried to, absolutely tried to grasp upon the 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 her own individuality and her rebellious nature. Alicent was more internal. She didn't really want to rock the boat. She felt that if she was dedicated to what society expected of her, that's where she should be. And Alicent might be less a character and more a personification of the horrible patriarchy that exists within this world. So she is the dowager mother, the dowager queen, and the people around her, as she gives birth to these powers or monstrosities or access to it, they may be drawing from her like killing the golden goose. And she may be sitting back, sitting in her gilded cage of a castle, but everybody else is benefiting from the power that she has and grants them. So maybe there are, for example, maybe Sir Criston Cole is one of the greatest, most powerful knights in the realm simply by her blessings. And we represent that mechanically in the game. There may be other individuals who are, hiding in shadows, have influential voices, very rich, and she may be proverbially the wishing well for other characters. And they need her to be who she is, to have her position, because whenever they go to her and they ask for something and they make her feel guilty, she gives it to them. And from the outside, the player characters are like, damn, no, these people are badasses. Like, how the hell is that happening? And she could represent like the greed and the intimidation, the blackmail that they're using against her. And it represented itself in the world in a physical nature, making people stronger, faster, more perceptive, more skilled, longer living, by draining her of her good graces. And the players may be able to stop this, again, using the MacGuffin, that if she draws that power up into herself, one downside might be we might make the most powerful villain of all. The other upside may be simply by her realization that she is a powerful person on her own. That may be all she needed is somebody to recognize that, and then she becomes an ally, maybe a very powerful ally. Um, there's something else that I can't think of, and it crossed my mind. Oh, okay. During the House of the Dragon, because because of the confusion that many characters have the same names, through not only do they sound the same, but characters are literally named after other people. Now, we understand that George R. R. Martin has explained this, that in our own reality, we do this all the time. People are that's why we have juniors and the thirds and people named after grandparents and things like that. I named, my child's middle name is after my uncle that I loved, and this other character's name, and people have names that transfer. I remember when I was younger, I was called B1 because my first and middle name was so common amongst family members that they had to differentiate us, and so they just called me B1. And I had a younger cousin who was B2, and it's complicated. So Aegon, she gives birth to Aegon, the first of his name, the firstborn child, second of his name, who is like the name Caesar or any other famous noble name. People look at this child as Aegon, and of course he's going to be the king. And she hears spoken from the mouth of her husband, the king of the nation, that Aegon should take the throne. And so she is completely convinced, erroneously, yes, my child should take the throne. And like a game of telephone, where you get a people standing in a long line, and you say something to the first person in line, and each person has to, like a telephone call, speak to the next person in line. And we invariably, the first thing that someone says and the last thing that is said mutates. And she could very well have been told or promised, or an oracle has said something to her, to this Alicent character who completely believes it. And the player characters are like, really? Like, that's not what the prophecy said. That's not what the history book said. And trying to convince her otherwise, because she's already going down a dark path, may be very difficult, and could also be an excellent motivating thing for player characters when they know the bad guy is completely wrong and took it the wrong way. And the PCs are like, so you're telling me that she did this by overhearing a conversation or misinterpreting the signs or whatever? And you as the game master's like, yep, she just completely misinterpreted. Someone ripped a page out of the book of knowledge, and she just ignored that page and kept reading. And uh, there was a dumb, funny comedy where a lady had recipes for cake and pie, and she accidentally mixed the two together and started making something called pakes, and her bakery became popular for people ordering pakes. They never showed you what the pakes look like, or how it happened. It was just a happy accident, and this could very well be it. She's like, no, I read in the books that this is supposed to be the thing and I'm supposed to be here. And the PCs are like, no, had you turned the page, you would have realized that this person said was referring to somebody else. And she might have been like, oops, I didn't realize. Well, I've already doubled down, so too late now. um, so yeah, that may be the case that Alicent is not only just mistaken, but um, another motivation of being hypocritical is so many people in our lives, people in who have great power and influence over us, make mistakes, and instead of just stopping in their tracks and going, "Whoa, I'm sorry. You're so right. I did make a mistake. Let's rewind and go backwards." There's some people who double down on their mistakes. I see that behavior when I was living in the hood. It was very much like people. No one ever apologized and admitted to their mistakes or took responsibility to be accountable for their actions. It was always somebody else's fault, always. And usually people got louder and more obnoxious the greater chance you found out that they were wrong. And yeah, placing that kind of personality trait on Alicent would be excellent, especially if the player characters are like they're in the middle of a battle and they go, wait, everybody, are you saying that we're getting in a conflict because you read the paper upside down or something dumb like that? And she's like, don't tell me I was wrong, blah blah blah. Which would be pretty hilarious. Like you realize at the bottom there's a coffee stain. I don't know. Maybe that's a little too ridiculous, but again, hypocrisy has no limitations. So so uh, so absolutely. Also, I would dare say that we could make Alicent an enemy in the making, and the fact that if you have the opportunity to grow a character in parallel to the player characters, maybe she starts learning from all of the other bad influences and just keeps getting better. Similar to Paul Atreides, who is quite a bit of a Mary Sue character, who learns from Duncan, learns from Gurney, learns from his father, learns from his mother, learns from the Fremen, learns from, and every step of the way, Paul Atreides, Maldeep gets more and more powerful and more skill. And I think Alicent kind of fits into that category as well. She listens to her father. Okay, she gets some political influence. She listens. She has a relationship with Sir Criston Cole, a knight, and then she learns swordsmanship or tactics, military tactics. She uh, the nursemaids that begin raising her children, and she learn to control them and something like that. The Ant King says this is like how Lex Luthor sometimes starts as a friend of Superboy. Exactly. Hell, damn, in the Smallville show, a great. I'd never finished Smallville, but I love the portrayal of young Clark Kent and young Lex Luthor in parallel because the young Lex Luthor, his dad was the corrupting influence to Lex as a young person in that community, in the Smallville community, and or actually he more or less lived in Metropolis, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, um, it makes a lot of sense that way as well, where Alicent is as the player characters get better, she gets better, but she's influenced by has more darker influences, and she could very much be an ally, an inside name voice for the player characters, where she's like, don't worry about it, you guys go out and do your adventuring, I'll handle things back here. And she may literally be an ally in that sense, but the PCs come back and realize there were atrocities committed, and she explains to the player characters, listen, if I didn't allow those atrocities to happen, they would know it's me. I can't help you out. Here, guys, let me help you out with this other gift while I move up in power. And then when the PCs leave and come back, they go, we heard there were like triple assassinations and they placed you upon next to the throne or something. And she's like, yes, my voice is in the ear of the leadership of the Council of Seven. Yes, there were assassinations and I moved up, but it was necessary for me to be here. I'm still your ally, so just let me, and blah blah blah. You think he has a small village that really tried not to give us the costume for as long as they could? Yeah, that's the unfortunate uh downward spiral of television shows that happens. It's a byproduct of the worst parts of television, especially as aired here in the States. That that a popular television show can't end, so they can never really tie up loose ends because they're always looking for the next season so they can keep working. Or the show doesn't get any watchers and they end the show early and they never tie up a loose end because the show gets canceled because the writers were predicting the show to extend and they never got to finish it. So all television shows, I've always taken the concept, and I know I'm getting squirrely here, every single televised show is already canceled. And if you embrace that, then your feelings are never hurt when your favorite show that has been canceled, will be canceled, or doesn't exist yet, but you're going to enjoy it, will never every single television show is already canceled. It's just we haven't caught up with the time period of that particular process. So when people are like, I can't believe they're not going to have a fourth season, it's like, yeah, because every show is not going to have the next season at some point. You know, very rarely do they send the show out at the highest point of its career. Usually it's like, usually people have already left the show. The best people have left the show to find greener pastures because they already know the show is on its downslide. Um, or people are jumping on the bandwagon as the show starts to rank up and they have to keep coming up with new reasons to continue it. So sorry. Um, so anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for allowing me to wax poetic about Alicent and her machinations and how to turn her into a compelling NPC, hopefully, and um, also, embracing some very human traits and just turning the volume up just a little bit for our bad guys really works. Hypocrisies and um, non-committal uh, uh, proclamations and characters who are both powerful and powerless that exist in the world. I think those things can be very compelling and and make for a different type of expectation when they meet, the old hag who's just like, I didn't even want to be this way, but I'm afraid of making amends for what I've done, but at the same time, I don't want to be this way. And my children are out there causing all kinds of havoc. And I listen to my, I don't know, fiendish father who turned me this way and stuff like that. So yeah, you really smooshed this topic expertly. You did great. Thank you very much. It can be a little bit of a struggle to be creative at like 6 in the morning every day. So this is kind of like my coffee. It is getting the brain, knocking the cobwebs out of the head, and getting the day started. So yeah. Drew says, this is why I hate open end campaigns in RPGs too. Yeah, since if you have no finish point in mind, then the game will die without resolution. I absolutely, you know what? Next week we're not going to do this, but I'm going to keep this in mind. I think we as a community, RPG community, need to stop thinking of only one shots or eternal campaigns, that there needs to be things in the middle, and we need to name them and come up with them and just do it that way. Like, I mean, we do that with television shows, right? We have procedurals, we have story arcs, we have things like, usually one shots are usually like 1 to 3 shots, and 1 to 3, 1 to 5 shots or something like that, short stories. And we should have other types of storytelling in between, because like you said, when you just have an open-ended, no, it's just go hex crawling and the game ends whenever the game ends. It usually peters out and with a whimper. Uh, there are content creators out there that have videos about how do you end a campaign, and it's like, clearly, like you're saying, Drew, the fact that they're asking the question on how do you end a campaign means that they never thought about the campaign ever ending in the first place. So pulling upon pop culture, we have chapters in books, we have storylines in television shows, we have individual character arcs stacked on top of each other of a greater plot, of which that plot could be separated into different chapters that strung together creates a bigger story. And maybe we need to think in smaller chunks so that we're not just trying to scarf down the meal in 2 or 3 bites, but it's like, oh, we've got the appetizer, and that's a full thing right there. Then we have our main meal, and that tells a full story right there. We have our dessert, that tells something. And oh, here's a side thing of a drink or whatnot, and tasting someone else's plate. I know this is a horrible analogy, but my point is that if we encompass these little small things, that we could tell a complete story, and then that story fits into the nature of the next story that's being told. So player characters getting together in a tavern in a small town or something could be its own story that is told and finishes as they get together and say, we should go on an adventure. And that could be literally be the end point. And then the next point is, we should book passage to go to the Hidden Isle. And they book passage and take a sea journey that is a story, that they arrive at the island. And that journey in between is a full story. And then when they're on the island, they explore the island, and that becomes its own story. And then finding a great treasure or dungeon or whatever, classically, they go into it, that's a story. Then leaving the island is another story. And each of those could be very short, 1 to 3 sessions or what have you. But maybe our mindset should be, let's get a beginning, middle, and end. And also recognizing that maybe the accoutrement, the flavor, the props around the characters aren't really that important. Maybe a story goal may be reconciling a relationship with a sibling, or coming to terms with a great fear or guilt, and resolving that through a journey. Or so some of this might be internal for players, for character development, and it happens along the way of the unresolved journey, but our character gains great skill, or resolves some unrequited love with another, through a unequally yoked romantic relationship. Or I remember playing in a game where one of my player characters' character, uh, through a course of events, the character becomes pregnant. And at that time, we didn't know what to do, because we were like, I mean, there's no rules for this in the game. And so then we decided to tell this story of this character, um, being pregnant and giving birth and children and things like that. And we would go back and revisit this character. And we were like, that's kind of fun. That's kind of cool, because it kind of told the development of the retired character, made key time points in the player characters who were returning back home and relaying their stories to the children who then grew up and things. And it was kind of cool. It was like a mini um, excuse for where the story began and ended, and how long the journey was, because they come back and the kids would be certain a different age, and they're like, oh, that's how long we were away, and then we're going to leave again and come back and tell some more stories. And it was kind of fun. Not I mean, of course, the person that had the character retired that character, but we didn't want that character to leave. So yeah, the End Geek says, I watched a video talking about this from Questing Beast. Yeah, Questing Beast, great channel. Love Nave, Ben Milton. I'm a subscriber to Questing Beast as well, right? Yeah. Yeah, good game over, just like in real life. Yeah. Which, thank you for taking us out. So, guys, your time is very valuable. Thank you very much for spending it here. I hope I can make change. If you've come this far along and you're a stranger or something, please do the damn thing. Strike down the algos with a like, share, subscribe, a follow. I I should get in the habit of putting all the contact stuff below. There is actually a Discord channel, which I haven't visited in multiple years or something. I really should get back to doing that. Also, this channel is broadcast simultaneously on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. So some of you may wish to go over. I guess I should have those links available. Okay, maybe I should shut the hell up and get those links available and do that tomorrow. So maybe that is this some how sometimes a game's mechanics should not be what the game is about. You keep the real part of the game free of mechanics because that's where the human creativity comes in. That's where Drew has coined the phrase fruitful void. Let's see if I can actually call this up here. No. Let's see if we get a good description or definition of this. This is from researchgate.net. Let's see, let's copy and paste this. And then I'll throw this in here. TTRPG design. The term fruitful void refers to a central theme that is deliberately left unsystemized, but toward which all of the game systems are designed to guide a player's thought and action. Essentially, just exactly like you said, and King, and thank you very much, Drew, for bringing this in part to my brain because I have fully embraced it. And wow, this is a full circle here. This Ben Milton's Knave has rules in it that says something. For example, he says, "No, I didn't think you coined the term, but yeah, yeah, Drew. The fact of the matter is, Ben Milton specifically says in his game he has no knowledge and perception checks. There are none on purpose. Yeah, inventor of the inventor. It's like the person who discovered humidity. It's just like, why did you do that? Everything used to be hot and cold. Now it's humid. Anyway, the idea is that he specifically did not have rules for perception and investigation and knowledge checks because he wanted a conversation, a back and forth for the players to explore the world. Hey, I look under the dresser drawer. I look behind the tapestry. I try to listen in and eavesdrop on the conversation. I use chalk on a rough surface and rub it against the back of the paper to draw up what the person was writing on the pad of paper. It is the conversational back and forth of the fruitful void that there are no rules to dictate whether someone is successful or fails in the attempt, but that we are having a conversation where those things are not mechanized. So in Knave, you can't make a roll, walk into a room and say, I make a perception check, because it doesn't exist. You want to know what's in the room? You need to investigate the room and have a conversation with the game master. And there are some content creators that do actual plays, live plays, and it's weird because we think, well, shouldn't you be playing a game that is more dramatic and narrative because you're doing a dramatic and narrative broadcast with a bunch of improv experts, but their contention is we don't want rules to dictate how we interact when we do our acting and improv. We just need rules to adjudicate combat, because we're not going to actually combat on live on the air. We're just talking things out. So we use dice or a randomizer to do that. But when it comes to characters being afraid or having animosity with each other or things like that. They're like, we don't want rules for that. We want to just have a conversation across the table. So that's what a fruitful void is. If I hope I did a good job describing that. Um, and I just did a Google search uh, fruitful void. Let's see if we. Let me see if. Let's see if we can find a even further. There's a fruitful void diagram. Let's see if I can get you to see this. I know it's at the end of the show. There we go. What's wrong? Stakes, dice, rising and seeing, escalation and fallout, and then it's a constant cycle of what's going on. A fruitful void diagram of the tabletop game Dogs in the Vineyard, showing how mechanics feed into one another to keep play in orbit around an unsystemized central theme. And so it's constantly like, what's wrong? What are the stakes? Roll the dice, rising and seeing what's happening, the escalation of that, the fallout of what's happening, of what just happened, and then we go on to, well, what's wrong? After the fallout, there must be something that happened. What's wrong? What are the stakes? Roll some dice. Then it's like the rising and seeing of the action of what that happened. Is there an escalation, probably of danger or fallout, things like that? Yep, yep, yep. Kind of cool. So anyway, thank you very much, guys, for letting me express this to you guys. Thank you very much as well for just sticking with my squirreliness. Um, very, very, very funny. Thank you, Drew, and the End King, and everyone else who was a part of the show and sticking this long to the end. Guys, have a great one. I will see you tomorrow. We're going to talk about the Valerians, I guess is how it's pronounced, Valerians, Corlys, and Rhaenys. Wow, I almost forgot her name. Corlys and Rhaenys, whose name sounds like Rhaena, whose name also sounds like Rhaenyra, who there's even a Rhaegar later on in history in between. It's so crazy. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. You guys have a great one. I will see thee tomorrow. Peace and tranquility. Bye.